Does it sound unusual to hear me talk about a firefighter who's a woman or a nurse who's a man? I would venture to guess that the majority of your initial reactions were some form of a yes. Don't worry, that doesn't make you a sexist, but it does mean you're aware of various stereotypes in the workplace. We're stereotyped every day, every one of us. Most of the time it's just, someone walking down the sidewalk making a quick judgment of you. It's more or less harmless, but where it does become an issue is when people are treated unfairly based on their race, sexual orientation, religion. The list goes on. There are many people in this world that, they can see exactly where they want to go, whether it's a specific position, a specific field they want to get into. It's transparent. They can see right through it, but there seems to be just something in their way.
Not only do stereotypes affect one's self-esteem, but they also affect the way you are treated in a workplace and how organizations make their decisions. Stereotypes are most obvious during the hiring process and during upward job changes in managerial and leadership positions. Throughout our research, we noticed that gender stereotypes affect the way businesses make hiring decisions and how people can move up in the management ladders within a company.
I worked in an office last year where we seemed to constantly be hiring new people. Almost all of my coworkers were over the age of 40 and most over the age of 60. There was one girl closer to my age who had just graduated from WITTed, and we ended up becoming friends. The summer between my freshman and sophomore year, she left and took a job in South Carolina, so my boss had to hire someone to fill her position. Once he had finally narrowed it down to a couple candidates, my boss was preparing for in-person interviews. I jokingly told him before his interviews that all I asked was that he hire someone cool and young like the girl we were replacing. He responded, "Allie, we would have major HR issues if we asked them anything like that." Being clueless at the time, I had no knowledge of the laws set in place. My boss went on to tell me that he was not allowed to ask their age, marital status, whether they had kids, or any other question of the nature, or that would be seen as discrimination and he could form a bias against them that might cloud his judgment. Even though my comment was completely harmless and I didn't fully understand what I was saying, these stereotypes are an ongoing issue in the workplace. Gender stereotypes are prominent and well learned, so it is possible that they may become activated with little awareness from the individual. This study took a sample of about 130 men and women and had the participants read over and evaluate identical cover letters randomly labeled Amy Smith or Alan Smith. The results of the study found that male evaluators tended to show a positive bias toward male applicants and a negative bias towards female applicants. This means that men rated other male applicants higher on average than they rated female applicants. This was an expected outcome given the tendency for males to adhere more to gender stereotypes. However, female evaluators did not show a strong influence toward either gender. Gender role stereotypes were originally formed when women were primarily engaged in the caregiving of children and have since been very hard to break through.
A study was conducted at the University of Alabama that examined the effects of gender stereotypes on hiring decisions and upward job changes. The study showed that women are underrepresented in STEM fields as well as business and corporate positions requiring strong leadership skills. In most cases, women are underrepresented in top leadership positions. This is due to the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling is a phenomenon where women cannot attain top management positions because they find themselves blocked by a seemingly invisible yet very real barrier. This barrier keeps women from obtaining levels of leadership that are typically male dominant. The article, Social Resources at a Time of Crisis, How Gender Stereotypes Inform Gendered Leader Evaluations, discusses the concept that women are generally selected for leadership positions during a company's time of crisis, and leaders are chosen based on periods of price decline or stable financial performance. In other words, men are typically chosen for leadership positions when a company is financially stable. However, women are typically chosen for leadership positions when a company is in a time of crisis. A good predictor of current organizational performance is past performance. If women are overrepresented in companies that have been performing badly in the past, they are likely to be overrepresented in companies that are performing bad in the present. When women are placed in this situation, and if they experience tough times in glass glass cliff positions, this can reinforce gender stereotypes that women are not suited for leadership roles. This idea of glass ceiling represents the challenges women face when moving up into leadership positions. According to the article, From Glass Ceiling to Glass Cliff, Women in Senior Executive Service, leadership is considered to be a quality most associated with males due to traits such as directiveness, assertiveness, risk-taking, and decisiveness. There are two theories that can describe how men rule in leadership positions, and these theories are social rule and role incongruity. Social role theory explains how each role, whether it's a father, a mother, a teacher, etc., has a set of rights, duties, expectations, norms, and behaviors to follow. And role incongruity theory is prejudice towards female leaders in two forms. The first is perceiving women less favorably than men as potential occupants of leadership roles, and the second is evaluating behavior that fulfills the prescriptions of a leader role less favorably when it is enacted by a woman. So overall, gender stereotypes exist in the workplace, and they exist when people try to move up the management ladder within a company.
In a recent USA Today study, it was found that men are 30% more likely than women to be promoted from entry-level jobs to managerial positions. When it comes to entry-level jobs, the ratio of men to women is 54 to 46, which is not too bad. Managerial jobs, however, are 63 to 37 men to women, and executive jobs are a staggering 81 to 19 ratio, which means the glass ceiling effect is enabled much earlier than people are aware of. Women are ignored and less likely to be asked for input with projects and ideas. Life at home affects women's aspirations as well. If women do all the grunt work at home, they want less responsibilities at work. Few women who have high aspirations actually believe their dreams are attainable. Overall, women have less access to leaders, less voice in processes, they get less credit for work done, and it causes them to be less optimistic.
A study in the American Political Science Journal found that humans automatically attribute negative social stereotypes to groups that have historically been struggling. For example, women are stereotyped as weaker than men because historically men have been dominant. In this particular study, Jewish people were given stereotypes and then outside opinions were drawn from them. It emphasized a lot of quick, effortless judgments are formed, and immediately, as soon as you meet someone, you make a judgment. This is unintentional most of the time, but it happens all of the time, whether in the hiring process, moving up in the office, or just in general day-to-day work. So basically, gender stereotypes can and do happen right away, and even when addressed, they don't go away. They continue to affect the entire business team. To reiterate, the study indicated that because a group had one negative historical stereotype, other negative perceptions were more probable from outside opinions. When a negative social trait is cued, the target of the stereotype suffers adverse consequences. For example, being Jewish doesn't necessarily harm your reputation, but Jews are considered to be a threat to society for a really long time. Thus, it becomes easier to attribute negativity and is more harmful to a person's reputation if they are Jewish versus if they're Christian. When the study acknowledges that negative stereotypes of Jews and certain other groups have declined dramatically in the United States, yet the results suggest that when campaigns cue social traits, they look to prompt a process of stereotyping, and then, in this case, Jewish candidates lost support. This is noticed across the board with various stereotypes. With a lot of work, stereotypes can be discredited, and we've seen that happen immensely in the United States. However, the trait bias from a stereotype will still activate, but it can be controlled. It is important to know that a group label that is neutral causes little harm by itself. So for instance, simply saying that I'm Jewish does not draw a negative stereotype to me, nor is just being a woman. A final takeaway from the study was that people who were considered too liberal struggled to get positive perceptions from people who were considered very conservative, and vice versa. As you can imagine, this phenomenon translates directly to the workplace, where differing views can cloud the perception of an employee's overall competence.
When you look in the mirror, what do you see? What do you think other people see when they look at you? When you look in the mirror, you shouldn't see a strict template of what society sees you as or thinks of you. You should see an individual with personality and unique characteristics rather than some limiting stereotypical outline. You shouldn't be held down and be restricted to certain norms, but rather have endless opportunities to be who you want to be. To do your part in fighting stereotyping, you must constantly be aware of them and have the ability to block that out.
So how do gender stereotypes affect business decisions? Well, it affects it before the hiring process even starts. You do it without even realizing it. Stereotyping in and before the hiring process continues to skew the gender gap by orders of magnitude as one moves up in a company. So we've heard a lot about this glass ceiling, and I'm sure today isn't the first time you've heard the term. The narrative around the glass ceiling has always been, how do I, the individual, break the glass ceiling? But the narrative needs to change. If we better acknowledge these biases, maybe we can all just take the glass ceiling down.